So the frog dissection is going to take place over sort of 2 days. The first day will be a quick, after our quiz, little tour of the external anatomy of the frog. We're just going to be looking at the outside parts and getting familiar with it. And then on Wednesday, you'll open up the frog, see the internal organs. So just a couple notes about sort of our procedure. So when we do our frog dissection, you'll have a list of steps that you're going to take, a list of organs you're going to have to be able to find. And what's of key importance to me is that you follow the procedure. So obviously, I don't take it lightly that we're dissecting, a dozen frogs in class or 10 frogs in class. I'm a vegetarian, so sometimes people say that seems to be opposed to each other, and it slightly is. But I feel that there is enough value in this that I still do this activity with our classes. But I also ask that you be respectful towards the frogs, and that it's not a toy, it's not something that you just cut up little pieces or fool around with. You look at the frog, you find the organs. Dissection is not really about cutting a lot of things apart. It's more about sort of exposing the organs and finding them, hopefully while they're fully intact inside the frog, so you can sort of see how these things are connected and how they relate to each other. So I do take that seriously, and I'm sure you will as well. So here you have just kind of a diagram showing the different organs, and you'll see just about every organ we talked about in the human systems that we went over, they're all there and they're present in the frog. And they're pretty much connected in the same way. They're in about the same location. So there's a lot of similarities between the two. There are a few organs the frog has that humans don't, and I'm going to point those out today as we go through some of this. Okay? So what we're going to do is we'll just review the function of these organs, and I'll show you what it's going to look like inside of the frog to kind of give you a little preview so that when you're looking at it this week, you'll know what you're looking for. So the liver. Remind me about the liver in a human. Some functions. Colin?
Filters out toxins.
Filters toxins from the blood. Something else. John?
It creates bile.
Creates bile as well. Yeah. So the liver does the same things in the frog. The liver is a really easy organ to find. In humans and in frogs, it's one of the largest organs. When you open up the frog's abdominal cavity, the liver is going to be the very first thing that you actually see. It's a big, grayish sort of organ, depending on the frogs. So in this probe is touching one lobe of the liver. The frog liver has 3 separate lobes. It almost looks like 3 separate organs. They're all the same color. Here's one lobe, here's another, and there's another. Okay. So those are the lobes of the liver. It's really the largest organ you're going to see inside the frog. All right. So how about the gallbladder? What do you think the function of the gallbladder is, Jack?
Stores bile.
Stores the bile, correct. Frogs have a gallbladder as well. To find the gallbladder, what you have to do is you have to kind of lift up on a lobe of the liver, okay, on the frog's right side, and underneath that, I don't like this picture because the color is not very good.
Is it black?
That, in this diagram, it's like a dark, in your frogs, every frog we ever dissect is not that color. It's greenish yellowish. It looks like if you took a pea and squeezed out like the inside of a pea and you just have like the shell left,
Like that weird.
it's kind of like, that's what I think of it. It'll be like deflated. It won't be full of bile. It'll be sort of deflated. But if you lift up the liver, see this probe is holding up the lobe of the liver. Underneath there's a little round thing. That's going to be the gallbladder. Colin?
This might sound weird. How long have these frogs been dead that were dissected?
I don't know. These have been dead for at least a year. I think these are frogs that we ordered last year.
Oh, you say 2 weeks.
All right, let me see. That's not All right, the bile duct is just the small tube. You won't really see it. You're not going to be required to find it. But the bile duct is what actually takes that bile that's being stored in the gallbladder, sends it off to the small intestine. The heart obviously pumps blood. How many chambers in a frog heart? What class of animal? Amphibian. How many chambers? 3. They're very clear and very distinct actually in the frog. So the heart, so in our bodies, we have 2 body cavities. We have our abdominal cavity that's under our rib cage. It's all our organs that are sort of here. And then this is called the thoracic cavity. It's up higher in our body. That's where our heart is. It's where our lungs are. It's protected by our sternum and our rib cage. Same thing with the frog. The heart is higher up in the body. And you could see that it's right in the middle of the frog, above the liver. And you could see it has 2 atria on the top, those lighter colored chambers. And then the probe is touching the actual ventricle. So that's the 3 chambers of the frog heart. The esophagus in the frog is pretty short. There's not a very long distance to go from the back of the frog's mouth to its stomach. So its esophagus is really short. You probably aren't going to see it. Okay? It basically just carries the food that the frog swallows down to the stomach. If you look at a frog's mouth, it just starts in the very, very back of the frog's mouth. That's the esophagus. To the nose. The stomach, same function in frogs as in humans. And what is that function? Digest food. Break down the foods that the frogs eats into a liquidy material, chyme. Now, what do frogs eat?
Bugs.
Lots of times insects.
Little fishies.
They'll sometimes eat small fish, small
They eat
crustaceans.
worms a lot too.
Yeah, worms. So when you dissect your frog, the stomach is going to be, it's on the frog's left side, it's underneath the liver, and it's like a curved shape. It's kind of shaped like a banana. And now, depending on if your frog ate recently before it died, there may be food in the stomach. So one of the activities in the lab is you remove the stomach, cut it open, and look inside of it. And so I have had sometimes students open up their frog and the stomach is very large and distended. And one time the students cut it open, there was a whole crayfish inside of the frog's stomach. And they took it out and they could see this exoskeleton was still in there. Other times, most of the time it's some insects. Lots of times there's no food there. It just sort of depends. Colin?
Oh yeah, if like we don't have perfectly symmetrical like organs, like we don't have 2 of everything.
Yeah.
How are we like properly weighted?
It weighted like balanced
Like,
out?
yeah, like balanced out. Like if you only have 1 pancreas on this side, is it like
Yeah.
like?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure. Is the mass of one side of the body different from the mass of the other? It probably equals out, I would guess.
Dude, that's wild, bro.
All right. So the stomach is for digestion of foods. Why is this not working? There we go. From the stomach is next the small intestine. What's the function of the small intestine?
Nutrients with the villi.
Digest and absorb nutrients. Correct. So in this picture, it's not really that clear, but the stomach just sort of like turns into the small intestine. Like here, the probe's touching the stomach, and then about here, it turns into small intestine, and it winds around inside the frog a little bit. And I can't really see it there. But one of the tasks you will do is stretch out the small intestine and measure how long it is.
Wait, is that your table? Is that?
No.
Oh.
The large intestine is the end of after the small intestine winds its way through the frog's abdomen. It eventually gets wider, and then that's the large intestine. The large intestine's job, as you know, is to reabsorb water from that undigested material. So if we look here, you sort of have to look closely. So what organ is this? Liver? Heart? Yeah, so now if you follow the small intestine, it curves, you can't see that part, but then it comes down here. And then right here where the laser is, it all of a sudden widens out. This part that the probe's touching down here, that's the large intestine. It's not that long in the frog. It doesn't, like in a human, go up and across and down. It just basically goes out of the frog. Yeah, it just widens out. And it connects down to the frog's body opening. It may have feces in it. Usually it does.
Nice.
So try not to rupture it if possible.
I'm going to rupture it.
Now, the frog, here is a part the frog has that a human doesn't. So frogs, like most amphibians, only have one body opening for things to leave the body. So humans, obviously, is different. Humans have a urethra for carrying urine, okay? A rectum for removal of solid waste, okay? A vagina or the urethra in males for reproductive products. In frogs, there's just one opening. It's called the cloaca. And feces, urine, sperm, egg cells all come out of this one opening. When you look at the frog's dorsal side, when you look at the frog's dorsal side, okay, the cloaca is here. It's sort of at the back of the frog. It's not right between the legs like people sometimes think, but it's up a little ways here on the frog's dorsal side. All right, now inside of the frog is a layer, a very thin membrane that's called the mesentery. And this mesentery basically is like this thin tissue that keeps the organs in place so they're not all sort of sliding around.
Wait, humans have this too?
Humans have it too, yeah. Like the frogs, if you held a frog upside down, if you opened up the frog's ventral side and held it upside down, all the organs wouldn't just like plop out. They're all held together with this thin film. It's called the mesentery. The pancreas is an organ. It releases insulin and digestive enzymes. You're not going to have to identify it as one of your things. It's very small in the frog. It's kind of tucked into the curve of the stomach. So this is the pancreas. So this is the stomach. And inside here, tucked away, is the pancreas of the frog. The spleen is an organ we didn't really talk much about.
What is a spleen? I always thought it was like part of your back.
No, well, it's towards the back part of your body, your dorsal part. It's actually responsible for helping to break down red blood cells that are no longer usable and helping to recycle their component. The liver is part of this process as well.
Yeah, I thought it was like a bone or something on the
Yeah.
outside.
And the spleen is, you find that you have to sort of look towards the back of the frog. It's like behind the intestines and so forth. And it looks like sort of a little red ball kind of near the kidneys almost. So this little red ball here, it's kind of hard, it's a little dark, but that's the spleen. The stomach is being held up, and the intestines are held to the side. Just see this. The lungs do do the same job in frog. Frogs breathe air. They take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. When you're looking for the lungs during your dissection, you're going to have to look on each side of the heart, but they're way to the back. So sometimes, so that's, the probe is not touching the lungs, so that's confusing. The lungs are here and here. They kind of look like two little raspberries, blackberries. So in this frog, the stomach has already been removed, the small intestine has been removed, so that you can see the organs that are farther back. So here are the lungs on each side. They're up high, again, they're in the thoracic cavity on each side of the heart.
Frogs have ribs.
Yep. The kidneys filter the blood, remove toxins and waste products from the frog. To find the kidneys, again, they're way in the back. You have to move all the other organs aside. They're on each side of the spine. Here, the probe is touching the kidneys. So they're way in the back. It's like they're reddish brown. This is not a great picture because they look kind of black, but this is the kidney here and here. They're easier to see in the actual frog. The urinary bladder we won't see. Just stores urine. Ovaries are found, so frogs have separate sexes. Ovaries release eggs. In the female frog, they also release estrogen. Yeah, not even all mammals have, like, I mean, humans have menstruation, other animals have like a seasonal kind of reproductive cycle. The testes release sperm cells, testosterone. So you will be able to tell, you won't be able to tell from external anatomy whether you have male or female frogs. Male frogs do not have a penis. Can anyone logic out why? See it? Not so much about that. What's that? What's that? No.
The broker thing just empties out everything so that they don't keep stuff.
Well,
I got it.
not quite, Edis. No. Why don't they have a penis is what we're talking about. I don't know. What did you think what?
They have no.
No. So in frogs, they have external fertilization. The purpose of a penis is to deliver sperm cells into the female reproductive system. Frogs don't do that. No amphibians do that. Amphibians just release reproductive products into the water. So in the male frog, sperm just comes out of the cloaca into the water. Egg cells come out of the frog into the water, and they mix and fertilize. So there's no purpose to a male frog having a penis.
I was gonna say because they're flat.
But you
How
can
supposed to
tell
know that?
by looking at the internal anatomy, because the male frogs have a relatively small sperm duct. Because obviously sperm cells are small, so the sperm duct's relatively small. When you're looking in the frog, if you have a male frog, you'll see the sperm duct is a very, very thin tube. So it's here. It's really tough to see, but the probe is touching this very narrow tube. Here you can see, I think you see it better here. This tube that I'm sort of tracing the pathway. This is the testy. Attached to it is this very thin tube. That's the sperm duct that would carry sperm cells from these testes out of the male frog to the cloaca. If you have a female frog, you will probably know immediately. So if it's a female frog, the oviduct is much larger than the sperm duct is in a male. So the oviduct is what takes the eggs out of the female frog. And so in frogs, the eggs are produced in the ovaries, but then they're stored in the oviduct until they're ready to be released. So if you have a female frog and the eggs are there in the oviduct, it's obvious. Usually, if you have a female frog, all of the inside of the abdominal cavity is all filled with eggs. It's like hard to see anything else because it's all filled with these eggs. If it doesn't have eggs in the oviduct, you'll just see the long tubes, but they're much larger than the sperm duct.
Whoa.
So they kind of look like mashed potatoes or ramen or something.
Oh my God.
These are the oviducts. So these are oviducts without eggs in them. If they had eggs in them, they would be dark in color and they would be much larger. They'd be filled up with eggs.
Where do they?
But do frogs like, so say they're released into the water, because I was at a wedding and we were in the water swimming, and there's like these big like pods of them,
Yeah.
and they seem like each one they're like bulbous little things.
Yeah.
So do they get bigger once they're released in, like over time?
Once they're fertilized, so they could have been fertilized, and then the embryo starts to grow, the eggs start to grow inside. So,
Because they were like, I'm talking.
yeah. All right, now here's another organ found in frogs, but not found in humans. So humans, we talked about this when we talked about frogs. So frogs generally hibernate, at least frogs that live in sort of our area. And so they need it to store up enough energy so that they can make it through winter without having to eat. And so in spring and summer and fall, when they have plenty of food available, extra nutrients, extra energy is stored in an organ that's called the fat body. The fat bodies are these yellowish orange things. And by looking at the fat bodies, you could tell sort of if your frog had plenty of food, if it died before hibernation or after hibernation, because as the frog is hibernating, the size of these fat bodies is going to decrease over time because it's using up the energy that's inside of them.
Why is that one's like some organs so much more pronounced?
Yeah, it just depends on the frog. There's just probably some variation in the type of frog or in the just natural variation. Frogs have an external eardrum. So we have eardrums, but ours are sort of in our skull a little bit. A frog's eardrum is right on the surface of its skin. In fact, if you don't notice, you might just think it's part of its coloration. It's back behind the eye, this little circular area, that's the frog's eardrum. It's tympanum is what it's called.
Well, you have to dissect that, we have to cut it out, grab it.
No.
Yeah.
So what, anyone that's in orchestra, does that word look familiar? Or maybe band, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Breakfast at Tiffany.
What is timpani? It's a big drum, right? That's where this word comes from. Oh, the frog also has a third eyelid.
Oh, yeah.
So frogs have, yeah, some birds have it.
Like eagles, only eagles have it.
We have the remnants of it. When you look in the corner of your eye, there's like a little like,
Red? Look at that.
no, not red. It's like a clear sort of membrane. It doesn't cover our whole eye, but in other animals it does. So this helps to protect their eye, but it also allows them to keep their eye open, even if they're sort of underwater. They can still like close that eye. Kind of like a third eyelid. It's kind of like a little pair of goggles it takes to wear.
Yeah, reason, like, Serena, like, golden eagles, I don't know stuff about movies, near nobody. So, like, these big birds, right, when they're hunting at night, they have to, like, close that one eyelid so they can still see and fly and keep track of their prey.
Yeah.
My dad would always scare me and be like, if you stay out too late, they'll come and grab you.
That way they get you.
That was.
All right.
I mean, bro, if I was smaller, I could.
Any questions about any of the frog organs? Okay, so let me explain what your quiz will be like when you have it on Thursday. On Thursday, I'm going to show you a presentation, just like, kind of like the one I was showing you today, with a bunch of pictures of the frog, and 10 of the organs are going to be labeled. Not labeled, but with arrows. And you, on your quiz, are going to have to write down what that arrow is pointing to and what its function is. So when we do our dissection on Wednesday, I'll come around each group and kind of give you a little quiz, just like that, see if you know the organs.
Would it be like actually graded or just?
No, just to kind of quiz you so you're ready for the Thursday's quiz. All right.
Mr. Duras, I have a question.
Yes.
So is our final in class?
Yes, it is.
Is it just